I'm Sean Arnold from Brave in the Attempt, sharing a previously recorded webinar. We're going to dive into Google for Education, and specifically Google Classroom, and what that looks like for remote learning. So, welcome. That's fine, but I'm going to forge ahead. Hey, this is probably the most important thing I'm sharing, that bit.ly link. That's the link to the agenda that I also shared in the chat. But that bit.ly link is the most important thing that I will be sharing today, because that has access to all of the resources and everything else I will be talking about, okay? And if you want to reach out to me, here's some methods as well. All right, let's forge ahead. Just some rules right up front, which is a good thing that you want to set for your students if you're doing any of these kinds of things. We are all learning through this process. I'm sure I will make mistakes. I am a human being, but just try to work along with me. I'll try to share as much as I can. The whole nature of this is we are in the world of 21st century learning. If you don't know what that concept is or what the 7 C's of 21st century learning are, fine. I've got research that you can dig into deeper. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, only to say that this is stuff we probably could have, should have been doing with our students a lot already. Some of us already were, because whether our students are going to be in an assisted living center, if they're going to be working at McDonald's or they're going to be working at Google, they're going to need to learn how to communicate with other human beings. They're going to need to know these are reasons we should have been doing it before, but all the more reason now. But the most important thing at this moment is we're diving deeper. Just go ahead. We'll get there. Everybody's learning through this process. Everybody's trying to figure it out. Don't feel like because maybe you think you're starting at a level behind some others, you're going to be totally lost and overwhelmed. It doesn't need to be so. You can dig deeper into something called the SAMR model, which is just a growth process for teachers. And honestly, I've been so encouraged throughout all of this. Yes, there have been challenges and so many reasons to feel dark, but I've seen so much of a wonderful growth mindset amongst so many teachers, and it's been really, really encouraging, and families connecting socially, emotionally. So on that note, just give me, if you are in the Pear Deck, let me know where you stand, your mental state. This is something we should be checking in regularly with our students. Yes, you're not obligated to Google Classroom. Yes, you're not obligated to do regular video chats like this all day, every day for a block schedule, nor do I think that it is best practice for you to be doing any and all of that. But having these regular mental health and social emotional check-ins for our students, we all know that that's huge. But it's just as important for adults. Oh, you know what? This is nice. I'm going to show you guys responses. So, most of you seem to be in a good headspace. Maybe that's because it's Monday. Maybe it's because you've had your cup of coffee. I'm going to dig deeper than that. Also, I've linked, just so you can have a little fun with this, and I know it's not overly stressful as you're getting into tech, especially if you're unfamiliar. Feel free to play conference call bingo. If anybody does any of these things, feel free to mark it off, and in the chat on the side, call out your bingo as we go. All right? And on that note, don't stress about not fully being inured in this world of educational technology. Yeah, my screen showed a whole bunch of badges, which all that meant is I've been willing to try and experiment with lots of things over my career. Some of them worked better than others. Some of them met with failure, and I had to adjust quickly. That's okay. It's good to feel that unsureness, which is not a real word, but every now and again, because it means we're trying, we're growing. That's what learning is. I don't mean uncomfortable to the degree that I think somebody's going to toss a chair at me in my classroom, but unsure to the degree that I'm not sure how this is totally going to go today, and maybe be even honest, depending upon your group of kids, about that. We're all figuring this out together. Cool. All right, so on that note, I'm going to get a little into a moment of why before we dig into how you click this button and do this thing. I promise I'll give a lot of that, and I'll take questions on that. But I think in all of this, it's important to figure out who it is this is all about, and then we can figure out what we're clicking on and what we need to do, okay? So on that note, general overview, it's not in the technology itself. Don't stress the devices. Don't stress about the applications. That's Thomas Edison giving a little quote on, oh, the educational system is going to be radically changed because movies came to exist. And of course, he was absolutely correct. We never saw a book ever again in our whole lives. I'm being sarcastic. I don't know if you can read that over a web chat. If you're not familiar with these other things like a MOOC, that's online systems that we're using now, like Khan Academy. It's because it's not really about the piece of technology itself, and also the fact that schools are often some of the slowest across industry to adapt, but it's because it's about what your mindset of what a teacher is should be. If your mindset is that we are just buckets of information that we pour into kids, well, that teacher probably shouldn't have existed 10 years ago, because the information age is over with. We are now in the fourth industrial revolution. If a kid can just Google that the earth is 93 million miles from the sun, or ask Siri what 9 times 7 is, uh, the need to do endless worksheets of all those kinds of things become less valuable. I can even watch a YouTube video to figure out how to play the guitar. But if a teacher is instead a guide down certain pathways that students might not discover for themselves, or help them challenge their learning to those highest levels of cognition that they're capable of, yeah, that teacher can maybe survive what we're in now and the oncoming robot apocalypse that is to come. Uh, on that note, one awesome thing about online learning that you should keep in mind, we get to live in this area of creation a whole lot more asynchronous, independent learning for students as much as they are capable of. Yes, we want to be support systems. Yes, we want to provide as many resources as possible. But you know what? This remember stuff that may have happened a whole bunch in classrooms doesn't work as much in this context anymore, nor should it probably have then. So we get to live in the top of this. And I know that there are obstacles in the way of that. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with the concept of, yes, we have to Maslow before we bloom. Yes, our students, I've had some who were living in shelters while I taught them, and I brought food for them to class, and like extra clothes if I could to give to them to take with them. Cool. That's still situations now. We still have that for situations for kids. The digital divide is a thing that exists, and gladly there's certain things happening in the city to try to address that. And apparently all those regional education centers weren't nearly needed as much as we thought that they might be. Cool. But we do definitely want to take those time for our students to recognize those needs. I will ask a real quick question to you guys. What is it right now good that's happening, that's filling your bucket? Have you noted any things with your students? What are the things that are really draining it? Maybe it's all the learning new things. Maybe your admin is expecting live meetings all day. I will say filling my bucket is just some of the awesome things I've seen from teachers, talking with parents who are just so encouraged, even if it's just through a phone call, if that's the only tech that they and you have available, cool. They're happy for the check-ins. Draining, you know what? There is a whole lot of extra stuff I'm doing right now. Taking care of my kids, all the things at home, trying to coordinate, trying to function the schedule. Yeah, it can be difficult. I want to share one of these examples that one of you guys just put in here. It's kind of nice. Learning new things. I like that. I like that the idea of learning new things is filling you. But phone calls, yeah. If you are somebody with a paraprofessional and you're trying to figure out what the role of your para is, maybe that's it. Maybe that's something your para can be doing, is making those particular phone calls. All right. Some of you just saying that the kids are the ones filling your bucket. That's awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. I'm really going to take meaning on a lot of those. Broad strokes, yeah, parent communication is top of it. You guys have probably already been dealing with a lot of that. There's lots of forms for it. I will say Remind is something you can use that automatically translates if your parents have issues with that. But some schools have been using websites, and phone calls still work just fine. I think most of you guys have been figuring out the logins. If that's a particular issue, I'll try to go to that in a moment. And as far as devices, well, at this point, we're pretty much on city-based stuff if your school hasn't already handled it. But as we hop into the Google, I promise I'm going to take it slow and walk us through. I know this is a whole lot of stuff going on. One of the cool things is I've seen paraprofessionals and even students become, yeah, that tech support. Or, for some people, it's their own children in their home. I was doing a session on Minecraft education. The kids were teaching as much. So, prioritize in the midst of all of this, seeing your kids. When I say seeing, I put that in air quotes, because seeing might be that phone call. And feel the need to reintroduce yourself in whatever sort of sessions you're doing, your new rules and systems and situations. I've linked some of that in the agenda that you can use and copy for yourselves. And try to keep it as consistent and simple at first as possible, but still allow moments for openness and creation and differentiation for your students, all right? understanding asynchronous versus synchronous, and we'll show some of that. Asynchronous, just a big word for meaning I'm not hovering over your shoulder. I'm giving you some freedom to accomplish it. Maybe more of that should have been happening before too. Cool. But also taking that time for your own social emotional well-being, and that as students, providing a safe space, connecting with your students, knowing your students well, gladly still remains rule number one of good teaching in a remote space or a physical space. All right. So that hasn't changed. So all of us still have that going for us. And even if you're not an expert in the technology, even if we're generally not an experts in content, we try to be as competent as we can, but there are actual scientists and actual coders and actual authors and historians out there. We are at best those secondhand sources. We are and can be the experts in knowing our students and connecting to them. And that should be rule one in all of this. And I want to take just a moment to share that while this whole situation is new for all of us, we've experienced it in small scale ways before. After Hurricane Sandy, I was working with a lot of school leaders and teachers in especially Long Beach, and the schools were closed down and they were rebuilding, and students were trying to find connections. And I had some friends even who were going to those schools from Long Beach staying in my home. And it's a challenge, but that social emotional piece becomes the major core of it. I was also in the midst of the California wildfires, working with teachers in California on what they could do. And they might still have the physical school in space, but you have 28 kids coming into your classroom, 25 of which have lost their entire home, every single thing within it, all their possessions, and all they have is their family. And at the end of the day, does it matter as much what level of multiplication they mastered? Maybe they got through 2-digit today. Maybe they didn't get to 3-digit like they expected. But if they went home feeling that they were cared for, loved, that there was somebody in their corner, that was a success, a major success on that day. So keep that in mind. I shared some resources specifically on things you could do for social emotional learning. Class Dojo, Nearpod, Vocabulary have tons of resources in that regard. But then in terms of our hubs and our connections, I want some feedback from you guys. You can go ahead and drag those flags in to the ones that you guys are using or are familiar with. Yes, we're going to be focusing heavily on G Suite here today, now in just a moment, as I go through how you click this thing, do this thing. But if any of you are using any of those other ones, yeah, it seems to be mostly G Suite, but some of you are using Flipgrid and Class Dojo. And I'll say that those can be embedded in G Suite too. So using one doesn't mean you're obligated to another. Office 365 and G Suite, Teams and Google Classroom do collaborate and work together. You can embed a Google Doc inside of a team. You can link to awesome OneNote and Minecraft education resources on G Suite. Thank you. Some of you are using BrainPop. I will say for the non-District 75 folks, yes, District 75 has long had a subscription to BrainPop. If you don't have an individual account for that, and you're in District 75, message me and I'll send you the link, because that gives you access to so much more. If you are not District 75, you can also get free BrainPop services right now too. All right, next part. Where are you at in your learning process with G Suite? Are you in the middle of making a ton of activities? Are you someone who hasn't even signed into it or figure out how to log into your DOE's account yet for it? Where do you stand? Let me know. And wherever you are in this process, that's fine. Okay, so that there are definitely a few of you who haven't even signed in yet, so that I'll make sure I walk us through that. But some of you are making activities. I'll briefly take a moment to show us what that login looks like. And the instructions more explicitly are in that agenda that I linked, okay? Thank you guys for letting me know. So as we forge ahead, I'm about to get into click the buttons. Boom, as we're especially working with students with disabilities, yes, there are certain challenges technologically, cognitively, etc. But we're going to focus on what we can do with them rather than those limitations, okay? A couple beginning considerations. You guys know your kids better than everybody. That's still rule one. Remote teaching, online teaching everywhere else. It's good. G Suite, when I say the word G Suite, and I realize I've been saying that, G Suite is Google Classroom and all the main Google apps. I'm not going to be going through the apps. There's a whole separate session for that, for docs and slides and all that kind of stuff. I'm mostly going to be focusing on Classroom and Hangouts and forms a little bit for assessment today, but G Suite refers to all of those things. Let me go ahead also say that in the end, our goal is just to allow students that freedom to create and advocate for themselves. So in Google, what does that allow us? Boom, we can track progress, we can track grades, all these kinds of things. It even allows for voice typing for struggling learners. I'm going to go through several things at the end specific to students with disabilities and ways you can adapt it and make it more accessible for them. We have our meetings, Google Meet Hangouts, that I'll show you how we can have those live synchronous meetings with our students. We also have embedded translations for our multilingual learners, as well as differentiation and remediated learning as we're assessing for students with alternate quiz tests. So these are some of the things I'm going to go through. You can go ahead and drag a flag on there if there's one you want me to particularly focus on. But I realize since I am going to have to be starting with even showing you how to log in, I'm going to try to get through each of these to a degree. And I have shared far more information in that agenda doc, which I'll share again at the end, where you can dive much, much deeper, see example classrooms. I'll show you a few of mine. But adding all these is a big piece. Grading and stuff will be big, so I'll dive into that as well. Okay, so thank you. I'm about to pop open now a new tab as you guys are answering that for me, and I'll leave that live. I'm just going to go ahead and go to classroom.google.com. Now mine's already open, and that's fine. I want to clarify two things for you who are struggling with logins. One, I'm going to assume that all those people don't have their own school-based G Suite. All right, schools that did already had that in place. Boom, you can jump ahead and keep rolling with that. Maybe you had to add more students, but you can keep going. The rest of you, your students are using an @nycstudents.net account. You as teachers are using an @schools.nyc.gov that you're used to. I've linked in there things like this that'll give you a walkthrough of how students can go ahead and set up their accounts, how they can link to them. This will walk you through it. Hey, there's this remote learning portal and student account self-service. It tells you they have to enter their OSIS number. I will recommend, especially if you have kids who you think will struggle with it, parents with language impairments or speak a different language that's going to cause a challenge, you can go ahead and set this up for them if you have your students' OSIS numbers and date of birth information. And just go ahead and put that in, and you can go ahead and set up that account, set their passwords for them. Maybe you want to make blanket passwords for all of your students. You can have that control and do it. It just looks like this. You'll go ahead and type in that student's OSIS number, type it in, and it will tell you their login information. You can also get it for all your students inside of STARS too. That is one other method. So that's basically how you'll get in. If you as a teacher want to get in, it's very, very easy. Literally just go to Google, and that same account you've been using to get into Office 365, you can now use to get into Google. Here's one other clarification for that. If you're using the citywide domain, for the sake of privacy, you cannot connect that to people's personal Gmail addresses. You cannot connect it to school-based accounts. That only works with @nycstudents.net accounts for their privacy. Students will have access to Gmail, and they can email you, the teacher, and other staff. They cannot email each other. They cannot email outside people. You, the teacher, don't have access to Gmail. You'll still be using your Outlook and Office 365 emails, all right? You can't be set up for both simultaneously with the same account. But as you can see, I can go on in here and go on in with my @schools account. Of course, I don't have a ton of stuff in that one because those are new for us and we just set it up. But once I'm in there, I can either click up on this waffle and find the app that I want to go to if I want to go to Drive, or I can simply type the name of it. Everything in Google is just that app.google.com. So Classroom is simply at classroom.google.com.
Sean, can I ask a question about what you just said?
Go ahead.
So I've been having some issues because I of this new DOE G Suite account and my previous Gmail account, which is where I was mostly putting my stuff. And then when I can't be logged in both at the same time. And so what do I do? I'm trying to
That's a
share my
great
documents.
question and a common question, and I'm glad to address it early. It is one I was going to share later, but here's the key to that, the easiest way to do it. First, let me ask, what kind of device are you using? A computer, laptop?
I have a desktop or a laptop.
Okay, cool. So then this will work very easily for you.
Okay.
It works on other devices too. Are you guys familiar with incognito or private browser windows? Let me zoom in. Can you see that? This says, since I'm in Chrome, it says incognito window. There it is right there. If I go to File, Incognito window. In other browsers, it's simply called private browser in Safari or Firefox. If you open that up, yes, the one thing it does is it doesn't remember your cookies, your passwords, all that kind of stuff. But it also lets you log in from scratch. So if your regular Chrome is set up to remember your personal stuff, go ahead and go into that incognito window and log into it. It's also a method that I use where I can log into one Google account, say my teacher account here, and then log in as a student in that, and I'll be doing it here in a little bit, student in that incognito account so you can see what the student sees. So yes, use an incognito or private browser window is the easy answer.
Okay, but in terms of documents, I guess I just need to share it from one to the other so that both.
Well, no. It can live in, I mean, if you've already created it in your regular personal stuff, yes, do share them. Don't do the work twice. But yes, so share them. But when you share it with students, it will have to be shared through the @schools account. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so here I am. I'm in other Google Classroom. There's tons of classes here. I'm going to go ahead and create one from scratch, though, because I'm assuming, and I'm zooming in on this so we can see it a little bigger and better. I'm going to click this little plus button in the top right corner. It says create or join class. I also want to say, for those of you who have never logged in before, please, the first time you're going here, don't click too quickly, all right? It'll have all these things about, do you want to allow? Do you want to allow? Do you want to allow? And you want to keep hitting agree on those, but don't go too fast because the last question asks if you are a student or a teacher. If you click wrong on there, it's going to give you a headache and it'll take a little while for the DOE to fix it, especially if you're using the DOE accounts, because you won't see this thing called create class. If you're a student, you'll only see join class. If a student makes that mistake, honestly, it's not that big of a deal. If a teacher makes it and accidentally click students, it's going to be a headache because you can't even start creating your classes for a while. But if I click this button, I can start a class, give it any name I want, Google Tryout, you know, any of this other information you feel you need, but that's not necessary. Now, when you hit create, it's going to take a little bit, and there's a good reason for that. It's not just creating your classroom, it's also creating a calendar system. It's also creating a file and folder system within your Google Drive where all the things for this class are going to be stored. But here's my nice, lovely new class called Google Tryout. If any of you want to join it, you can go to that Google Classroom and type in this code. I'm actually even going to paste that in the chat for you guys. So if any of you want to join this class right now, if you have it open and you want to join as a student, it's fine that you can join a class as a student and still be a teacher of your other classes. It doesn't mess anything up. But if any of you want to join and join this stream here and pretend like you're a student now, you can do that. All a student has to do is go to that same place where they're starting, hit join class, and it's not going to work for me now because this is my class, and type that same code. So it was PF3CWDA, right? And they could join. All right, I'm going to hit back in here. That honestly is the easiest way to have your students join. I will go here though, as we notice all these other things at the top for stream, classwork, people, grades. Go here to the people one, which is also another place you want to begin. Oh, look, somebody's already joined, excuse me. I can go ahead and add students individually here. So if I suddenly wanted to add, I'm just going to add some generic students like that. And you could type a whole bunch of them there. But you see, they're still grayed out because they haven't technically joined the class yet. So either they or you will have to log in as them, and they'll see your class, but there'll be a button underneath that says join. Once they do, this will go into this full-on colored version that looks there, all right? And they'll be a full-fledged member of it. You'll also note for people who've joined my class, if I want to, I can invite their parents. I can type a regular personal Gmail account in there, mom@gmail.com. I don't know if that's a real email. It might be. And they will see only the information for their individual students. You can't add those, especially if you're using a DOE account, like at schools.nyc.gov. You cannot add personal Gmail accounts and things to your classroom. It will not work. There are restrictions in place for the sake of student privacy. COPPA, FERPA, privacy still has to be in our minds. But you can't add students this way. Here is another big piece, adding teachers. So I can have a co-teacher. Maybe it's a cluster teacher. Maybe it's the PE teacher. Maybe it's my para. Maybe I've been asked to also add my administrator so that they can come in and give me any tips and hints and hopefully not be too overbearing. This definitely has to be a time where administrators are being flexible as well. Not that they don't still are obligated for certain observations or blah, 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 blah. But again, we need to keep in mind that everybody's in a learning process now. So I can add people that way. There is a limitation. If you've got tons of service providers and stuff, you can't do more than 20 teachers in an individual classroom. So if you got tons of related service providers, maybe they want to set up their own classes that the same students are a part of. All right, so that's this whole people section. Let's hop on back over to the stream, and I'm just gonna share something with my class, and I'm gonna ask, what are you binge watching right now? This isn't an official assignment, so I'm only putting it in the stream. I don't want this to be actual student work. Maybe I'll even link to something, I don't know. I'll link to IMDb. Sure. If you guys don't know what IMDb is, that's like the movie TV site webpage where you can learn about like ratings and reviews. Or maybe an even better one, if it was actually with students, I would link to, Common Sense Education. But I'm just going to add that link right there. Sweet. Let's go ahead and even add another link. I want to add it to Common Sense Education. If you're not familiar with what Common Sense Education is, or what Common Sense in general is, Common Sense Media, it's a place where it lets you know what's in a movie, what's appropriate, what good questions you can have about it for your own children. I actually learned about it as a parent before I learned about it as a teacher, but it also shows you, hey, here's a bunch of cool tools you can learn about and dive in. So I'm going to share those there. You let me know what you're binge watching right now. I can schedule it for later on. I can save it as a draft because maybe I'm not ready to post this yet, or just post it right now, and I'm going to post it right now. And if you have joined my class, feel free to respond there. Again, here's the code that I pasted into the chat, PF3CWDA. You can make it really big for your students to see too, if that helps. All right, so what are you binge watching? I'm gonna leave a comment on it. And again, you can turn these comments off if it becomes too ridiculous for your students. Honestly, I haven't had a whole lot of time to binge watch, but we have been trying to do Friday night movies since now the movie theaters are closed. And now all those movies are available online. So we watched The Invisible Man, and we watched, what was that new children's one? The one where it's all about, I can't even remember the name, with the centaurs and unicorns and stuff. Tiger King, I've seen a lot of people doing that one, yeah. And I can go ahead and look at through my students' ones. I enjoyed the Jack Ryan, yeah. All right, and I can reply to them. I can go ahead, if it's inappropriate, delete it, but I think you guys are all cool. I like all those comments. And that's just a running tally of what's happening in this class. This is unofficial, not classwork. That's fine. If it ever becomes an issue, this is something very important that I want to show right now. Hey, I'm getting pinged, I'm getting emails every time a student writes something. Up here on the top left, you'll see all your classes, your calendars, etc., to-do lists. Down at the bottom is something called settings. And under here is where you can go ahead and change all those notification settings. This is going to be huge for you guys, especially for administrators and people who are part of several classes who are getting killed. You don't have to turn them all off completely if you still want some, but what do you want? Only when students submit their work, so only leave that one on. Only posts from teachers, go ahead and only leave that one on. You decide what works for you, what doesn't drive you too insane. If you want the settings within an individual classroom, you can go ahead and click this, the cogwheel, what it looks like a gear up in the top right here, and that's settings for individual classes when you're inside of them. So that'll give you that class code and everything again. It also lets you know, hey, do I want to allow students to post and comment, or only teachers can talk there, and all those types of things for your individual classes. Do I want people or students to be able to see things that I've deleted, or should only the teacher be able to see deleted items? So those individual settings for your classroom are all up here on the right. Cool, cool, cool. Oh, Chris, watching so much news does make us sad. All right, I'm gonna hop over to the classwork area. In classwork, this is where we do our assignments. On Classroom, the classwork section is assignment time. So yes, we're linked to our calendar here. Yes, I can look at all students and everything I've assigned and all their work inside the class drive folder, although there's an easier way to do that I'll show you in a little bit. If I would just want to create some work for you guys, I'm going to create just a basic question. Where do you wish you were right now? Now, I can put more instructions, same as the other thing. I can add links from my Google Drive, link to YouTube videos, et cetera, et cetera. I can decide if this is a multiple choice question or short answer. Here's what gets very interesting. I can assign this to multiple classes right now. I can do it to all of these classes. I can go ahead and assign it to individual students if I only want a couple of students to see this. So if I want to differentiate and push out certain work for this group and certain work for another, I can select only a few students within this classroom. I'm going to select them all for now. I can also adjust the points on this. So if I'm only grading things on a 4-point scale, that's what this is. Do I want to set a due date? Sure. Maybe all of this question I want answered by April 1st. Maybe I want to set a time for 9 a.m. All right. This is a very important piece. The topic portion, this is what's going to keep things organized and sorted. So this is going to be whatever you want to sort things are. Some people do it by subject area. Some people do it by application that it's using. You decide. You decide what works and what organizes it best for your mind and those of your students. Am I going to let students reply? Sure. I'm going to let students edit their answers. Sure, if you want to change it and you see something somebody else says and you want to go there instead. When I'm ready, all the same stuff, schedule it, save it. Let's just go ahead and ask and see what you guys say. And while you guys are answering that question, I can suddenly start creating another assignment that maybe I'm not going to assign yet. Feel free to answer that one, where you guys are going to be. If I were going to answer it, where do I wish I was right now? You know what? Half the places I wish I was are closed. I'd love to go to like Disney World or something right now, especially given the fact that they're not crowded. All the places you want to go but are always too crowded and wouldn't be now, but they're closed because they're not crowded. Those are the kind of places I would love to go right now. All right. I can do a regular assignment here while you guys are answering that. In this assignment, I'm going to go ahead and link to a document, a Minecraft education rubric. And you can link all sorts of things here. I'm just going to use a document that I already have in my Google Drive that I've created. Again, if you want to learn more about creating docs and using that, there's going to be, I believe, a session on it tomorrow morning that I'm doing. So I'm going to just do a search for Minecraft in there. Look for that rubric. Well, here's a whole bunch of stuff. Here we go. Here is a Minecraft project rubric, because what I want my students to do is play the assigned world and mark on, and write at the top of the rubric your description of it. All right, again, all that same stuff. Who am I assigning to? What's my topic? Do I want to attach an actual rubric? Well, no, I already attached that as part of my assignment. Here's where this gets important, though. This is an important piece. Students, can they only look at this? If you're not familiar with Google Docs, one of the great things about Google Docs and things is that it allows for collaboration and working together online, people remotely. Yes, right now you guys only have viewing access to my agenda because I don't want you editing it and messing it up for anybody else who's there accidentally clicking on stuff. Maybe that's appropriate. Or maybe I want students to collaborate together and work on this as a whole and let me know what's going on. Or make a copy for each student. That doesn't mean you had to make a copy individually. I'm still just using this one original document and it's automatically going to make a copy for each kid. So I'm going to assign that, and hopefully maybe one or two of you have responded for the initial question as I did. Give that a minute as it makes those copies for each and all those kids. And you know, we have to be patient too because I think the internet is a little overwhelmed. Where do we wish we were right now? No, this is actually really important. All you guys responded as a comment, which this is an important point, which means you didn't actually do your work. One person did, and here's why. When a student clicks on this, and now I'm going to go ahead and join this class as a student in a private browser window, which I will try to let you see in just a moment. Let me just go ahead and open it up as that student. And now I'm going to share a different screen with you so you can see that private browser window. This one right here. All right, so I'm a student. I'm going to sign into Google Classroom. I'm going to use that generic account that I think I put on it. I think I made it user1, .com. See if I remember the password. And I did, and here's that class. You can see I get that button join. So on the original screen, I, the teacher, will now not see that student grayed out anymore. Here's what happens. Here's that stream. Everything that was going on was there. Here I, as the student, also get to see in classwork what's been assigned. If I, the student, click on this, or even better, when I'm out in my classroom, I see assignments. Where do you wish you were today? This is where you should have been typing in your answer, not in the comments. So if up here I type Disney World, or maybe Hogwarts. I wonder if Hogwarts is hit by this illness right now. Turn it, I mean the actual Hogwarts, not the one in Florida. That's where I can turn in my response. That's where students should be turning in their responses. If I've allowed it, I can even see my classmates' answers. Cool. So those of you who put it in the chat, thank you. I appreciate that. But you did not follow directions, and maybe you wouldn't get full points for this class. Oh my goodness. It's okay. I grade on a curve. All right. But now I'm going to hop out of there. Now that you see what it looks like as a student, if I also as a student, actually, let me go to the other assignments I have, professional learning surveys, other work that needs to be done, or just to my broad class again, see all the work across my classes that's due. Here's my new assignment. Here's my work. Ooh, I don't know why that hasn't loaded fully. There it is. See, I have my own copy of that document. So you guys also, if you join my classroom, will see your own copy. But maybe I'll say that what I did inside of here is, let's put this on normal text. I built a pretty house. Now that wouldn't be a great response, but this student is struggling. That's all they can tell me. They didn't even put a link to their world or show me a picture of it. And they went and they clicked turn it in. All right, they turned in their assignment. It's attached there. They could have also attached any other sort of things. If they're like, oh, I messed it all up, they can quickly unsubmit before it's due, before the due date. So they do have that level of control, but after the due date, they can't. Because what actually happens as they submit it, I become the owner of that document. I have control. They can't edit it anymore. I am in charge of it. All right, so let me get back on that teacher screen so you can see what this looks like for the educator and share. Oops, let's close that one out. And I believe this is the screen that I want. Yes? Yes, it is. Okay, so I, as the teacher, can hop into this assignment that I've done. Let's say I know students are doing it already. I've only got one that's turned it in, the one that I did. But I can go through here and see my students' work. Oh, okay, let's check it out. I was grading on a 100-point scale. Let's hop in. And you'll see it opens it up in a new tab for me. I even from here can look at all the other users in my classroom and see that it's assigned, but they haven't turned it in. So if I went to their documents, well, there's nothing there yet. But it's very easy. I don't have to open new tabs. I don't have to have all these other windows open for other students. I can simply scroll through them all, find the one that I want to respond to, find the one I want to work on, see what they did. Maybe this isn't so hot. I don't know. Just for the sake of it, I'm going to give them a passing grade because I don't want to fail anybody who's doing any of the work at home. But they didn't fully follow my directions according to the rubric. Maybe my comments are, I need to see pictures. I accidentally muted myself as I was muting somebody else. Sorry about that. I need pictures. Why does it keep going off that window? Pictures. There we go. And maybe because I'm lenient, I'll allow the student to go back and re-edit it and turn it back in for a higher grade. Maybe I've also created a whole series of comments in my comment bank for issues they normally have. Like maybe regularly this is an issue where they need to add more media. You can copy and paste it there. Maybe these other ones like punctuation and capitalization, are regular issues. I can also simply add comments to the student document throughout, just like you can in Docs. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that right now because that's a whole Docs training. But when I'm finished with this, I can go ahead and return everybody's or return just this student's work. So now they are the owner of that document once again. Okay? Let me open this up in the chat so I can see what you guys are saying. All right. So let me go ahead and head back. I can see the students that have grades, the student work that still needs to be done. Yep, nice. That all I got to through the grades section of that class or through the assignment itself. So you can either get there through the individual assignments if you want to do it one assignment at a time. If you want to do a whole bunch of things, you can look at your grades area and hop into each and every one of those. So I can do this whole, where does everybody want to go to? If you gave me a tropical answer, maybe I'll give you a full credit. Oh, Thailand, that sounds nice too. Hawaii sounds good. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna give that, I wish I could give it I'm giving you a 5. If you mention your family, you get bonus points. There you go. Or people you care about, loved ones. Nice job. All right. So that's grading procedures. That's the classroom setup. That's the stream and your classwork itself. Those are some of the basic functions of how Classroom will work for you in organizing. I do want to give some overview of what you might want to do in terms of making it more accessible for students with disabilities. So I'm going to show you a couple of other things within the classroom. So let me forge ahead on that. And I'm going to take some questions from you guys. All right, a few notes. Inside of Google Docs, as well as on its own, standalone, there is Google Translator. Pretty good, not great always. The DOE has its own translators that you can call into if you ever need it, still on call. I think I might have linked those in the agenda. If I haven't, I will. There's also Microsoft Translator, which is good for translating to multiple languages simultaneously that you can speak in English and people will hear in their own languages. Voice typing exists in Google Docs. These are things I'll go more to in the Docs trainings, but students can go ahead and speak it, speech to text. Hypertext docs with links and visualizations are great for students who require that. YouTube, if you've linked those to your classroom. Of course, they're not blocked at school here, if you are in a school where there was blocked because the kids are at home. And it does allow you to embed it so they're not seeing all these ads and things, and they can turn on captions even in other languages if they're available. And captions, if you're presenting like this, are also available in slides. Separately, I will say one other thing because I'm going to show you this live. Classroom itself, I showed you how you can differentiate to 1 or 2 students, but you can do similarly things inside of Google Forms. So inside a class, I'm going to create one other type of assignment. This is going to be, say, a quiz. Now, if you're not familiar with Google Forms, there are the things you fill out, surveys, all that kind of stuff. Do I want it to import the grades? Does the kid do it? Fine. There is a button here for locked on Chromebooks. Definitely don't turn that on for kids at home, even if they're using school Chromebooks. Practice. And it already has created a brand new blank form. You can do all the things on the side. If you click on that, you can go ahead straight and edit it. So let's imagine that this is a math assignment for students. And my students are struggling, early learners. We're just learning about basic numbers and shapes. Again, this can be done with very complex topics as well. But we're just going to say early math, give it that name. Suddenly my quiz should also have that name. If not, I'll paste that name up there. Let me zoom in so you can see this a little more easily. All right, it's already set up as a quiz, so I don't need to worry about that. But if ever you do, up in this settings button is where you can go ahead and change those settings and turn it on and make it a quiz so that there are point values for each question. This is also an important one too. You probably want to turn it on. Collect email addresses. So that way your students, when they're coming straight from Google Classroom, you don't have to have a question of who's this. They don't have to write their name at the top. It's automatically going to create a timestamp. They're already logged into their Google Classroom. It's already going to collect that email address, the student's name. Do you want outside people to be able to use this or keep it private just for your students and stuff? Do they get to take this test more than once? No, for me, maybe not. So let's go ahead and select that one as well. When I'm ready to start making my questions, maybe my first question is what, oh, you know what, let me not even ask what. Identify the number. Oop. If I could type right now. There we go. Now, what's really great about these is if my student can't read that, I want that simply to be, instead of short answer, it gives you all these options. I want it actually to be multiple choice. I'm actually going to be putting a picture in it. All I did to get to that is click this little image button next to it. And I can go ahead and go straight to a Google image search. I don't have to open another window. Let's say 9. I like that one. That one looks pretty. Shiny golden 9. It's huge. I don't want it that big. I'm going to resize it a little bit. And then in the answers, I'm going to write the numbers that I want. Maybe this student can't handle more than 2 options, 7 and 9. I go here to the answer key down here at the bottom, select which one's correct, select how many points it's worth. Maybe there's feedback. Remember your number chart. When I'm ready, that's done. Let's add another question. This one, it's going to be about shapes. Identify the shape. Maybe this, I realize, students struggling even more. They need multiple visualizations. They can't even do text responses. So I'm going to look for a circle. There it is. Oops. Select that one. Again, resize. And then my answers can be text or images as well. So on this one, I'm also going to add a picture of a circle. Circle. Let's get a different kind of looking circle, maybe a blue one, just to see if they're confusing shape with color. And for square, maybe just to be a little extra tricky, I'm going to choose a similarly colored square, just to make sure that they're not misidentifying color with shape. All right? That'll be my answer. Maybe I'll even give one more. Maybe this kid's complex enough, and I'll add a triangle too. Triangle. I'll just take this green one because it's right away. Here's where we can actually differentiate for our students and create remediated learning pathways. It's done using what are called sections. You can use sections to create choose your own adventures, to create sort of interesting storytelling, as well as these differentiated pathways. So I click, I add a whole new section. Now maybe this is the section students go to if they get the answer wrong. I probably don't want to call it wrong answer. I'll call it extra practice. And all I'm going to do is click this little button at the bottom where it duplicates that question. I am going to zoom out though, because it's hard for me to see all of this when it's that big on my screen. And I'm going to drag that same exact question into the extra practice section. Now here's where the difference is made, and I'll zoom in so you can see that a little better. This little snowman looking button on the side, the 3 dots, gives me a few options. I can add descriptions, I can shuffle the order of the answers, or I can go to a section based on the answer. So I click that, and if they get it right, maybe I want them to go ahead and it's over. This is only a 2-question exam. Or maybe I want them to go to the extra practice section if they get it wrong. And maybe in addition on that extra practice session to that, oops, let me zoom out again because I think I missed dragging that extra question over there. Actually, I'm actually even going to delete that question because I want to copy it after I've made those go to section pieces on it. So that way it's actually going to loop. So if students get it wrong again inside the extra practice section, they'll keep going back to it. So also on this extra practice, I want to give that kid a little extra help. So I'm just going to add a video. Maybe it's a video we watched in class, a YouTube video on shapes. So when they go to that section, they get to see and be reminded of our shapes song again. This is what it will look like for students if you want to test it out. Ooh, let me zoom in. It's this little preview eyeball looking button at the top. So student answers a question. I don't know, maybe I'll get that one wrong, and I'll get this one wrong on purpose. So that way when I go next, oh, it takes me back to it, and now I've got access to that video to answer it again. I'm not going to force you to sit through that and watch it. But that gives me a sort of remediated pathway for my students. I know I only showed you multiple choice questions, but this works, not the different pathways one, but creating a quiz works for text-based answers too. So if I also had an identify the shape question, and this time it's a trapezoid, but I don't think my students can spell trapezoid, I can, under that answer key, select any answers I think are correct. Trapezoid, maybe some student would misspell it with an S, and I think that that's okay. Maybe I'm going to write trapezoid. Maybe I'll also accept quadrilateral, because that's still correct. Or pointy thing. You decide. But that's essentially how you can make those quizzes and have them all set inside of your Google Classroom. And then you just assign it the same way you would anything else. A little differentiated pathway for your students. So that's a cool way that you can reach some struggling learners with disabilities. As I said, translation exists across the devices. Lens and Lookout is really nice for students with visual impairments to identify things from home. Accessibility Suite is for students who have physical impairments, and there's a link to it. Honestly, if you want to make sure that students are doing work, there are other methods for it. Say watching a video, Edpuzzle is a good method. I know we'll be doing trainings on that. If you want to know if students are having attendance today, just put in one simple question: did you come in today? But if you want to reach students specifically with reading and learning challenges, a thing like Clicker Docs has really awesome add-ons that give visualizations. And I'm only going to show you one extension live. There are tons of these, like Open Dyslexic and Mercury Reader. But the one I really, really want to show you is called Read and Write. So I'm going to go to New York Times and look for at least one news story that's not super depressing. You can find all these extensions and add-ons from the Chrome store. I linked those all in the agenda, which I'll be linking there again. And then I'll be taking questions in just a second. Here inside of any text-based website and page, I can go ahead and click up on all my little add-ons that I've added to Chrome during that time. And I guess the New York Times is flooded, so let's go to something else like Newsella. Oh, no, here it is. Okay, oh, that's way too depressing. Here we go. How America Can Reopen. Sure, why not? That doesn't sound too terribly depressing. It may not be accurate. Who's to say? Not me right now. But it is text-based and open. There we go. So this loads that page. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my Read and Write. And what that allows me to do is have access to a bevy of tools that are available for you or students. Of course, it does require students, if they want to use it, to install that add-on. But Read and Write, come on. Open that window. As that loads, I'm going to describe for you a few of them and then take some questions as I show it. Some of them include shadows that mask certain areas of the screen so students don't get distracted. It has built-in screen reader functionality. It also has picture symbols. So for all the text, if your students need picture symbols, those are built into Read and Write as well. Okay? Oh, there it was. It was just opening up. And then I clicked on something else. But I will start taking a few questions from people if they have it right now while I open this up. And then I'm going to copy and paste that link again for anybody who needed it to the agenda. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask out loud? Oops, here it is again. Yeah, for example, here is that screen hider. Here is picture symbols. That's a dark one to take it for, but whatever. Deaths. Yeah. So that's one of the things Read and Write can give you. I'm also going to put up on the screen that final information if you need it. For me, that's the agenda if you can't see it in the chat. If there are no other questions, if you do have one, make sure you unmute your microphone and I will stick around for a few minutes to answer some questions. Otherwise, I hope this was helpful. Feel free to go and dive into that agenda and reach out to me through Teams or anything else if it helps. And otherwise, have a great day and take care of yourself.